Okay, who's got the first question?
Yeah, he had a sore back and side yesterday, and he's going to have to bowl today before we know whether he's fit or not. So it's a little bit up in the air at the moment. We'll obviously know more after practice today. No, it's not one of those ones, but there's some general sort of stiffness and soreness there. So it's a case of whether that sort of loosens up or whether it continues to be stiff and sore. So we'll probably only know that after practice today.
The biggest thing would be a favour in your mind to replace him if you had to, Andrew. Would you look for as light for life as you could, or an opportunity to bring something different into the attack?
I think we'll probably sort of deal with that if and when it becomes an issue for us. At risk of repeating myself again, I think the case with selecting the side is always to pick the 11 you think most likely to allow you to win that game. So it's important we have a look at the wicket. And actually probably we might even have to have a look at the wicket tomorrow because it's browned off quite a lot overnight. So by tomorrow morning we'll be clear on what that best 11 is.
Trevor looks as strong as a horse, but it must be frustrating for you and particularly for him that his body seems quite fragile.
Well, he's a big lad. I think that goes without saying. And obviously he hasn't played a lot of cricket for a while now. So we're very hopeful he's going to come through this. But it's always been the case that he gets stiff and sore after a fair amount of bowling. Generally, he's been pretty good at recovering from that, but we're obviously not 100% sure at this stage.
He's a guy who's got all the physical attributes, but injuries are really making a bit of a mess of his career, aren't they?
Well, he's playing for the England Greek team at the moment, so he's doing all right for himself.
And with 2 matches here, 2 high-scoring draws, does it look a draw pitch?
Well, I think that's hard to say. I mean, obviously the issue with grounds like this is we haven't seen the wickets previously, so we don't know how this wicket compares. But at the moment, it looks like a very good wicket. There's no doubt about that. Probably characteristics-wise, it's changed a little bit over the last 24 hours. So we'll have to see what it's like tomorrow. But we're expecting a very good wicket for batting.
But it'll be hard to prize out a result of that, do you think?
Possibly, but there's a lot of things that can happen over the course of 5 days. I mean, it's important not to kind of have too many preconceptions about how the wicket's going to play. I think we probably learnt a lesson in Dubai on that one actually, because certainly the back end of that game the ball was going a bit up and down, and I think it was a very good Test match wicket, and probably wouldn't have been it wasn't a draw, but I think it wouldn't have been a draw either way. So. We'll play the conditions as we see them.
Andrew, you've shown in the past an ability to fight back from it. It should be obviously a great achievement in either of those, given the record in these kind of conditions. You could fight back to them.
Well, it's a big challenge for us, and one that I'm personally really looking forward to. We clearly let ourselves down in Dubai. We're not going to hold our hand. We've got to hold out our hands and say there are no excuses for that. We didn't play well enough. But that's okay, you're not going to get everything your own way in the game of cricket, and it's how you come back from setbacks which is the true measure of a side. So this gives us a good opportunity to show that. It gives us an opportunity to show our resilience and our character and our fight and our hunger and all those sort of things that people associate with a good side. And we've got a great opportunity over the next 5 days to show that.
Do you think it's more difficult in these conditions than like in home or in Australia?
Again, the preconception is that this is a fairly flat wicket, so you're going to have to work hard for a victory. We don't know how it's going to play. But either way, we're going to do all that we can to make sure we eke out a result. And that means firstly batting better, and secondly applying more pressure on the Pakistanis, and that's got to be our focus.
Is there any indication that this pitch could offer more consistency spin than in Dubai?
I mean, it's hard to say really. I think the past 2 games here have shown that it hasn't been a huge amount of help for either spin or seam, but this wicket might be different. So we're going to have to judge that, I think, both from kind of having a bit of a feel about how things go in the nets, but also by trying to use your cricketing nous and gauging what the wicket how it might deteriorate over 5 days.
Just being here, back in your memories of 3 years ago when you were here during that intermission of the India tour? Because obviously you trained and went straight on to India and batted very well in Chennai, made a couple of hundreds. Do you sort of take sort of a few happy memories from this to spur you on?
Oh, that's a good question. Look, it wasn't. I don't think it was a particularly happy time for us then. Things were still a bit up in the air as to whether we were going to go back to India or not, and I think we all got bounced mercilessly in the nets by Freddie Flintoff. So, they weren't brilliant memories. But obviously for myself personally, I went to Chennai and scored a couple of hundreds, which was fantastic on the back of it. And I suppose we were in one of those positions where we kind of had to gather our thoughts and sort of put all side issues to one side and go out and concentrate on what happens in that 22 yards in the middle, and we're in a similar position in that respect now.
Did you feel you were under more pressure then because you were playing to feed India from the start there? It's delighted to have you back, but also because of the security situation now, because of the test match, that's all you can still bounce back.
I think just very different circumstances, really. I think that was one of those occasions where you were stepping onto the test match pitch, probably a little bit underprepared in some ways because we'd been home and all that sort of stuff. But it was, you could feel the importance of the game of cricket that we were back out there. So it wasn't pressurised in that respect. I think the most important thing was that the game was going ahead. Where we are now is a situation where we've let ourselves down in the last test match. We've got to let that go, but also learn the lessons from it.
Andrew, it does look a flat pitch, and you're obviously one down with the series to win. Are you in the mood to gamble a bit, selection-wise, or whatever?
In the mood to pick the right side to win the test match, yeah.
Andrew, England have only come back 3 times in history after losing the first match in a 3-test series. I think one of those involved W.G. Grace as well in the 19th century. History would suggest it's a tough ask to come back, but is that the kind of challenge this side had to take and achieve to achieve greatness?
Well, obviously we put ourselves in a difficult position. We've got to win these last 2 test matches. But there have been plenty of instances in the last few years where history's been against us and we've been able to overturn that. So, we're not going to worry about that sort of stuff too much. It's very important we don't look towards the results of this game on day one. We just hopefully put ourselves in a position to get on top of the opposition side. And by keeping it as simple as possible and sort of sticking to the basics is going to be our best way of coming back into the series.
Andrew, if you come across basically a sort of phlegmatic type of character, how concerned are you with the fact that you've made one test 139?
Well, look, it's obviously disappointing, and certainly not getting runs in the last game was disappointing for me. But having been around the test match scene for a while now, I know that form ebbs and flows, and one innings can completely change both your perspective and other people's perspective on how well you're playing. So, I'm not sort of overly fussed about it, but I'm obviously conscious that it's important that as a captain you lead from the front with regards to scoring runs.
Cook, the loyal vice captain of the club, was telling us yesterday that you actually given the ball well, but then you slightly mystified why we haven't made as many runs the last year or so. Is it a source of mystery to you a little bit as well?
Well, look, I think the game of cricket is like that, and certainly as an opening batsman it can be challenging at times. But all you can do is accept the challenge and make sure you prepare yourself properly, and when you get in a position to score a big 100 you go out and do that. And that's probably where I've let myself down a little bit over the last year or so, is when I've got to 50 or 60 I've got out rather than gone on. So I appreciate Alice's comments. I do think I've been hitting the ball pretty well, and hopefully that means there's a nice recipe in place to go on and get a big score.
Andrew, how much more difficult is it when you work on your own game as a captain as opposed to when you're just an ordinary batsman and really you only have to think about making sure you're all there?
Well, it can work both ways. I think you're obviously busier and you've got a lot of other things in your mind, but sometimes that's not a bad thing as a batsman. Sort of over-analysing your game and getting too concerned by technical worries or whatever can put you in a bad place mentally. So it can work both ways. Generally, I've found being captain's helped my game. And hopefully that will continue to be the case going forward.
And you do things like preparation or anything like that, Andrew, when you go into a
Yeah, look, I think when you're kind of young and naive, you're always looking for that magic answer. So you'll be changing your technique, you'll be trying different things in the nets. I think when you're a bit older, you realise the best thing to do is just keep everything the same, keep your preparation the same. Don't have too many concerns about your technique, and make sure you watch the ball. And I think that's the best recipe to doing well. But it's always a challenge mentally, and anyone who's under any illusion that Test match cricket gets any easier as you get older is wrong. It's always tough. I suppose that's why it's called Test cricket.
Last two.
With that sort of 100 time, is there room for you to sort of recognise that achievement, or is there some room for sentiment given the challenge ahead?
I don't think there's a lot of room for sentiment generally in the game. I think the fact that we've opened together as much as we have done, is almost a kind of a byproduct of the fact we've had a very settled side over the last couple of years. And you only have a settled side when you're winning. So, it's fantastic. Alistair and I know each other's game really well. And I think we also feel that responsibility to get the team off to a good start. That's going to be our challenge in this game.
And since we've been out here, it's been obvious that both teams are very aware of the need for good relations between them, and I think we saw that in the first game. Do you think that any further continued discussion of Zayed where he bowls might threaten that sense of harmony?
Maybe, but you're not going to hear any discussion about it from us. It's not an issue for us. It's not something we're concerned about. We're far more concerned about coming onto the pitch and winning this game.
Great, thank you very much.